Good? Ready to go?
Yeah, you can do an intro, Doug?
I'm going to do an intro. Welcome, everybody, to another VFXTalk Presents. Today, we're super excited. I'm super excited because it's not just me hosting today. I've got Dan Short over here. He's also going to be joining me today. And we have been looking forward to this chat with Rodolphe of ActionVFX for a couple months now. Thank you so much for putting. I know you're busy. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us, and
happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited to chat. But first off, I wanna ask, how are you guys doing? The hurricane just came through, hit Tennessee. How's everybody doing? You safe? Everything's okay?
Yeah. Like that was crazy because when I heard the news of the hurricane, the first thought is, well, we're in Tennessee, so that's not going to affect us at all. And luckily, everyone on the team was safe, but it did hit, some parts of East Tennessee pretty bad, and definitely have people in our community affected. But thankfully, everyone was safe.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Well, I'm glad you still have power. I know a lot of Tennessee is out of power. North Carolina, we've got friends in North Carolina that are out of power right now. So I'm glad everything's okay.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, truly crazy stuff.
Yeah, well, it seems fitting that a crazy hurricane comes in at the end of this crazy year that has been VFX. It's I'm sure I don't have to tell you about all the pain and suffering and the strikes and all that stuff. But ActionVFX has been this really cool, this a positive voice out in that community during that time, offering all of those free assets for compositors to, go in and sharpen their skills while we're survive until 25. That seems to be the tagline. And I need to send a personal thank you to you because you guys were gracious enough not only to let me use your free assets for the FX PhD course I just did. You guys gave me some access to your awesome library, and I got to go through there, and I was blown away with not only the quality of it, which I was expecting, but just the depth. You have so many assets on your store. It's kind of incredible. How do you guys come up with all of your ideas for what to throw up there? What all these packs?
Yeah, I would say it's a mix. So most of it would be just us because we're all compositors. I had a history, a background in compositing. A lot of us on the team are compositors, so it's kind of knowing, okay, what would we actually want and how would we want it? So that's a big part of it. Of course, we also have just listening to the users and getting great requests from them on what sort of stuff that they're looking for. For example, I had a call with a user earlier this year, and he was mentioning wanting some good squib hits, for gunshots and stuff, and having the fabric ripping and stuff like that. And I thought, hey, cool. That's a cool idea. And so we started working on that. That's actually launching probably next week on the site. So it's a good balance of us kind of trying to predict, well, what would people want? What would we want? But then also just listening to the users, because I don't know, sometimes I feel like if all we did is just listen to the users, everything goes fine. You don't really need to know anything. Just let them tell you everything.
Yes, it's funny you mentioned that because Dan and I had a call yesterday, and Dan was mentioning that exact thing. You guys, Dan, take it away. You had some really good points about how ActionVFX listens to the community, how it's really kind of special that way.
Yeah, Rodolphe, thank you for being here, and also thank you for ActionVFX. It's been a long time since I've opened up anything but one of your asset packs for a shot.
Hey, that's awesome. Thank you.
I think the first time I really realized the real difference in ActionVFX, I was working on this show called Atlanta, and I think it's on one of your demo reels, but there's a Molotov bottle cocktail thrown in a room, and you actually had the exact element we needed, which was just a bottle breaking and spreading fire. And then there was fire inside this building, and you actually had beams on fire, and windows that fire was coming out of, instead of just us having to force a fire, like a fireplace that was just a fire. Like, instead of us having to force it riding up the wall, you had everything we needed and more, and it was incredible. So thank you for that.
That's always so great to hear that. Thank you.
But in the last year, I guess, maybe 2 years, I mean, you would know better than I do, I've really noticed you and Luke being in very public places, having open discussions that are really earnest and really humble. And I'm really struck by the amount of vulnerability and sort of patience and presence of mind it takes to do that. And I don't see Adobe doing that. I don't see like any other company doing that. And it feels like something that it's really part of the culture of your leadership style. And it's just sort of so rare. Every time I see it, I'm still a little struck that like one of you are on a Reddit post where someone's complaining about something. And you guys are like, hey, I'm sorry you're not having a good time with that, but this is the reason we're doing that. Yeah. If there's a better way we can do it, we'd love to hear it. Like, how do you cultivate that as a business?
Great question.
No, great question. It's I would say a lot of it just kind of comes from my mindset of, if you're making decisions that you can't talk about publicly, then maybe you shouldn't be making it. So in that sense, I feel like that in a way keeps me grounded and honest as well, because, you know, at the end of the day, any reason, like any business decision that we make, there's a reason for it. And, you know, that reason is not going to be, oh, because we just, you know, want to get all the money, and then it's like, it's corporate greed and stuff. And so it's kind of like, well, if that's not the reason, if it's truly for, you know, what's better for the company, what's better for our employees, what's better for our users, then I should be able to talk about it and address it directly. And being a smaller company too, it's like from the get-go, like very early on at the beginning, I remember really not wanting the company to be a faceless company, because there's a lot of companies out there where they have a great brand, but then there's no one associated, there's no face associated to the brand.
You don't know Mr. Adobe? You haven't met him personally? He's a great guy.
I have yet to meet Mr. Adobe. That's actually hilarious. So yeah, and that was something that we always started to do from the very beginning, from the time we did the Kickstarter campaign to the first few videos that we launched, and it just kind of stuck with us and stuck with the culture. And most recently, we did some shift to our business model where we, you know, went the subscription route to have like a subscription to access the library. And, you know, subscriptions, that can have a very negative connotation to some people, where you think subscription is automatically, oh no, like this is going to be bad. But truly, we wanted to build the fairest subscription ever, to where, you know, you get to retain things you get from this subscription even after you cancel, and all of those things, to really make it fair to the user. So it's like, okay, well, I should be able to talk about that directly and present that directly, because again, if it wasn't a good thing that we were doing, then perhaps we just shouldn't do it at all. So
yeah, I actually really like the subscription model, because it gives you access to like tons of, usually you kind of have that sticker shock, right? Of like, you know, you look at the high quality assets, and it starts putting it a little bit out of reach of the normal everyday compositor. And now with the subscription, it's a lot easier to kind of digest and go like, oh, okay, I can pull that rain down, I can pull that snow, you know, you can mix and match. It really lends itself to a compositing workflow.
And I mean, congratulations to ActionVFX as well for like working through that process. You know, like changing the model, and then having a sort of different pricing tier, and then recognizing that it wasn't working for the user right away, and then adjusting it again quickly. Like it made it feel like if there really was a problem in the future, you guys would work to fix it in a way that works for the user and for ActionVFX. Like, We don't want you guys to go under so that we can get a bunch of elements for $1, you know?
Yep.
That's always the balance, right? And it's yeah, always a learning process. But yeah, it's luckily it doesn't have to be either or. We just have to think deeper about the decisions and just find a good sweet spot that works for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever use a Video Copilot back in the day? That was my subscription library for a long time. All of those elements. It's like got me into compositing.
No, yeah,
really.
like I think I was in a senior in high school when Action Essentials 2 came out, and it was like, oh my gosh, like that's so mind blowing. And yeah, it's like, I mean, I can easily say, even if when we launched, sometimes it did feel like, hey, Video Copilot, they're a competitor because of Action Essentials and stuff. But I have mad respect for Andrew Kramer and everything
yeah.
that these guys did. It's like, I feel like something special happened with Action Essentials 2, where it made stock effects, I don't know, almost like more mainstream in people's minds, and really seeing the potential to be using different assets to create more than you could have before, and a lot of that paved the way for Action VFX and just us building huge, massive library of different stuff. So
Yeah.
good times back in those days.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember trying to cobble together elements from Art Beats discs. So that's the Wayback Machine.
Well, it's funny, Dan. One of the first times you and I got to chat face to face, kind of like this, you were mentioning that Flare Factory node that I made back in the day and put it up on Nukepedia. That was entirely Video Copilot inspired. I just really wanted those flares inside a Nuke, and I was like, oh man, got to get them.
But then you built them in Nuke, which is so hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. Yeah, well, and and that kind of brings it up too, like the where do you think Action VFX, talking about Video Copilot, they got into like the software game too. They made like an optical flares. Speaking of, that's pretty cool, and some other little pieces of software. Is Action VFX going to stay stock footage? Stock asset, these packs. Are you going to get into tools for Nuke or After Effects? What are you guys thinking?
Yeah, it's how would I say this? It's like in business, there's this weird balance of when exactly do you branch out and go do something else? Because if you do it too late, then obviously it's like, oh, well, you already missed the train. If you try to do it too early, then your team is small, you're splitting focus, you're splitting resources. So then you're just doing a lot of things poorly instead of actually doing it. And it's a very interesting dilemma, and it's a very interesting season like right now that we're in with, one question I always get is, hey, like AI, man, AI is going to put you guys out of business and stuff. And I do think with the way things are going, the way people work and the way people comp, the way people do effects, like a lot of that will change over time. So I think it's a safe bet to say that the same role that assets play currently will probably evolve with that, whether it's less, whether there's new types of assets that people are using to do different things. So it's like the way I kind of think of Action VFX right now is really trying to position the company to focus on people. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, a bet that I am making is that there will always be people that work in visual effects. There will always be different tools that these people will benefit from, to work faster, create something easier, do something more impressive. So it's like that need will always be there. Now it's like, what form will that take? Will that be 2D assets? No, I think there'll be a lot more options than that. I mean, there's already a lot more options. As you mentioned, there are software, there are various scripts for different programs, different asset types, 3D assets, VDBs, and all that type of stuff. So the way I see Action VFX going is, you may have noticed this year especially, we started having assets that are not created by Action VFX. It's like going the marketplace route, which we wanted to be very careful about that, because to me, the most special thing about us is our quality, is our just the mindset at which we approach how we create products. We're not just shooting random stuff and then it's like, oh,
there's a consistency. Every package is very well.
Yeah. So when we're thinking of the marketplace thing, the first thing we had in mind was just, okay, we can't just become the Wild West where we just open up the platform and it's just like, here is whatever 8-bit footage of, I don't know, 720p overexposed fire, and start selling it. It's like, no. So, well, how do you balance it? Well, we are kind of like the most hands-on marketplace right now. We are working pretty closely with the various contributors, sharing not just like the specs that we follow, but also just guidelines on how to create stuff. And that's going very well right now, and it's still growing. And it's cool to see, like water sims, for example. That stuff always take so long. And and to have someone that already has all that experience, years of experience, and they're like, oh, I can just make that, and then they make it and post it on Action VFX and actually see them making actual real revenue from it is a super cool thing. And we want to lean more into that. But the whole point I'm making, though, is right now we are doing mainly 2D assets. We have some 3D, but it's mainly that. But the vision that I see and what I want to build toward is this idea that Action VFX is really a VFX marketplace. It's I sometimes like to use the phrase, it's the Amazon of VFX. And what I mean by that is,
you're going to space. That's what's happening. You're building a rocket ship. You're going to space. I see where this is headed.
But what I mean by that is just this idea that, could we really be a platform that is catered to just high quality visual effects tools? Whatever form that looks like you mentioned, doing stuff for Nukepedia, for example. It's like, as soon as you said that, that's like, oh, that's so exciting to me, because I do think there is a market for high quality gizmos and stuff to share with different users, and it's really about building that ecosystem and position us enough to be flexible to wherever the needs are. We can be a platform that provides that to people.
Well, it's you're catering to you're in luck, because you're catering to a group of artists. VFX artists are very unique. We've talked about a little bit like the weird pathology of a VFX artist brain. You have to be very technical, but you also have to be very artistic, and you have to somehow mix those two. And it doesn't normally work. But what comes from that is VFX artists are some of the scrappiest, most creative, most intuitively something intuitively question mark. They kind of just know how things get put together in a way to make that movie magic. And we've been finding, like, this last year it's been very hard. Everybody's been out of work, and I've been seeing like this rise of these YouTube VFX artists starting to pop up. A lot of them are using Action VFX assets to make these like incredible Hollywood level, shorts, while they're just kind of sitting around, because we have to make stuff, right? We can't sit around and just be idle. And if you're betting on that crowd for your community, I think you're going to be just fine. Because I got to tell you, just today I was wowed by some of the stuff that they were putting up on VFXTalk. Some of those, I don't know, Dan, if you're busy right now, but we had a user from Compositing Academy. He posted a trailer that was incredible, and he had this amazing breakdown,
Love
and
those tutorials. Yeah.
he was grabbing like real filmed assets, putting it in there, and it was just for fun. I'm just like, what is going on? You know, it's incredible.
People
Yeah.
are talented. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Dan.
So much. Rodolphe, the when I worked at Framestore for a little bit, and you know, you got access to their global library of assets because they're a global company and they have a great pipeline. And like when I was a compositor at that point, I was just like, how am I ever going to get like a full room of rain for a shot I'm doing, like for fun, you know? And Action VFX has done such a great job to basically democratize that level of quality.
Yeah.
And it made me curious. Now that you have the open marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a whole different kind of growth as a company, because then you're managing other vendors and you have to maintain that level of quality. You need to make sure that if there are issues like that, you can solve the problems, or that the people who you're partnering with can solve any problems that any users have. Like, what do you do to vet the assets? And also, I was curious, are there assets that other people are able to make that have been really hard for you to make at Action VFX?
Yeah, so regarding vetting people, I'm a big believer that most problems, most processes, there's usually like if you take care of business at the very beginning, like at the top, I like to say, then it all kind of trickles down from there. So it's like if we accept the right people in the marketplace, like people that have already demonstrated the experience in creating high quality stuff, they have the real, they have the work to show. So it's like if we're picking those people, then you by default you don't have to worry about a lot of things as far as, oh hey, you need to, you know, can this asset look, you know, more real? You don't have to be you don't have to go that granular with the feedback, because this person already has the skills to create that. You really just need to guide them in terms of, hey, you know, you should be thinking of this like a compositor would think of this. You know, how about you choose this camera angle instead of this? And that's kind of where we can use a lot of our experience to do that. So that's kind of how I think of it. Yeah, pick the right people and provide the guidance that only we can provide them. Then you don't have to worry about it as much. But as far as assets that they can make that it's been harder for us to make, yeah, that's already a thing that's happening. Like I mentioned, the water sims is something that we've always wanted to do. Like most of our water stuff that we've done are real things, like the rain you were mentioning. That was actually, oh man, we've done so many crazy stuff. I remember just having to, yeah, a lot of Home Depot and Lowe's trips, getting pipes, and it was a very wide setup, but it looks great because like the scale really looks like real rain. But yeah, a lot of the water sim stuff have been things where it would either have been, you know, very costly to hire someone to do that specifically, but then you have to manage them, and it's this whole thing, versus someone just, hey, I've been doing water sims for 10 years.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll make something real quick. And then it's like, oh, this is great. Yes, let us sell this. So that's been super cool too.
It's just so nice that you guys have you have that curated library, because I don't know about you, Dan, but like I have one of my first jobs, we had a VFX supervisor there, and he brought along a drive that just kind of like was passed from like hand to hand to hand of stock footage of like past stuff that kind of like smuggled out of other VFX houses, you know, like kind of backroom stuff. And we had this drive that he would give you and be like, oh, you need some fire? You know, just pull it off of there. And when you start digging through there, they had the weirdest things. Like one of them was just like frogs just dropping from the top. And I was like, one, are the frogs okay? Because they were going. And I was like, what movie was this from? And he was like, oh, it was Titanic. And I was like, whoa. Why were you filming frogs for Titanic? Really, they filmed everything for Titanic. You didn't know what you had. Like, it was this kind of this bootleg tape of different resources to pull from for as a compositor. And you couldn't go on a website and search for what you wanted. You had to dig deep. And it's so nice to have Action VFX out there providing that service for the community to just be like, here's high quality assets. We've done the work. We've gone to Home Depot.
And as fun as it is to force a square peg into a round hole, which is like, let's use the frog element, but we'll color correct them and we'll put them in the background and they'll look like leaves.
Yep.
Falling. It's like, that's a cute compositing story, but getting the right assets in a timely manner just lets you do the work better and faster. Like, it's great that you could turn apples into oranges. That's wonderful. But the fact that you can just like do your job quicker with like less impediments is really wonderful. And I'm really excited on all the new assets that'll grow in the library. And I wonder if, like, let's say I was a simulation artist, or I had my own little studio that I'm shooting extra assets on. Is it as easy? Well, what's the application process like?
Yeah, so currently you just need to go to sell.actionvfx.com and you should see where you can apply. Pretty basic stuff, just ask for your name, reel, and some other information. And then our team reviews that, and we kind of take it from there and approve or request more materials if we need more to make a decision. But yeah, it all starts at sell.actionvfx.com. And this year is really the first year that we're really going at it. Like, I see
it's a good year for it.
I see us putting up a lot more resources into that whole thing next year, and really bringing more people into it and really spreading the word. But we wanted to walk before we ran, and we figured, okay, because we need to see how it actually goes. Can we really manage, the different contributors and ensure that they're doing great work? And can we actually transfer the Action VFX mindset to them as well as they're working? And it's been great, and it's been going great. And I'm super excited to scale that even more, because we're not stopping ourselves. Like, we're still going to be releasing original footage. We're still going to be doing our shoots. There are certain things that only us can do, in the sense of, like, we're not trying to get anyone to go blow anything up for real, for example. It's like no, you can just do that as a sim. We'll worry about that. But it's like, I am excited for the more we continue to grow. It's like the thought that, hey, maybe eventually we have more contributor assets than our own assets. That is actually very cool to me, because in a lot of ways it would show that Action VFX, like, we outgrew our own selves, which to me is, you have to always be working to make yourself useless.
I was thinking about the growth of your company, and I was thinking about the last time I used an ArtBeats asset, but I don't see another competitor to Action VFX in the space that's anywhere near you guys. Like, we talked a little bit about AI and machine learning simulations. Simulations in 3D get faster and better every couple of months. Every time I watch a 2-minute papers video, I'm blown away by what's possible.
Yeah.
But still, like, I've been through Runway ML, and I've done Stable Diffusion, and the assets that are built are really interesting, but they're kind of wild. You can't really control them, and they're not
slot machine.
They're all 8-bit. And they're not 4K. You can always up-res everything, but you like lose something as you gain something. The Action VFX elements are still, I feel that they will be at the top for quite a while. But as you grow and grow, you're sort of like making sure that you are your own competition by building in the marketplace, which is a brilliant business idea. It's like, because you as a company can only make so many assets at one time. And to have the community collaborate in that, it's you're sort of future proofing your model.
Yeah, it's like, again, that was one of those big driving mindsets at the very early, like at the beginning, was this idea of competing against ourselves. Because I feel like before Action VFX, most companies would simply have one pack of stuff here and there, if they were doing that. Like, hey, here's a pack.
Motion graphics, not really visual effects centric.
Yeah, and it's like the thing I knew from the get-go was I wanted us to be the best quality-wise, but also the largest. And I loved the idea that we could do an Explosions Volume 1 and then do an Explosions Volume 2. And it was kind of like, there was definitely this season, I would say, where there are so few options that it was very easy to know when, I've seen this asset many times before. And that was one thing that I wanted to really do away with Action VFX, is like, what if we had so much stuff that not only could you have so much stuff that you couldn't even tell, but even if someone only used Action VFX stuff, they would have so many different types of explosions to choose from, and different types of blood to choose from, and smoke and whatever, that even then you wouldn't know that it's coming from the same library. So there was always this idea that, hey, we can make one pack this year. Next year, we're probably going to think it sucks, which you should think it sucks, because it means you're growing and you're learning from your past mistakes. So then you go and you do a better version of it. Or sometimes not even a better version, just a different version for different use cases, and then just keep adding on to it. And yeah, it's worked out so far. And yeah, with moving more towards the marketplace model, there are so many talented people around the world. Like, it is insane how talented people are. And a lot of the time, someone who's very creative, they don't want to worry about the marketing aspect of things, and trying to find an audience. And I see all the time people will have their Gumroad page and they'll share it. And it's kind of like, okay, this is cool and all that you put your assets on Gumroad and then you made a LinkedIn post about it. But then, are you going to be getting recurring traffic from that? How much is Gumroad helping you? It's like, well, we already have, thousands of users on our website daily, specifically wanting VFX assets. So it's just all of those stuff where it's like, hey, you keep doing what you're doing, and we'll leverage the platform or marketing team or sales team. It's like I'm jumping on sales calls these days, and it's like, hey, this is fun. We're doing real business here, and someone doesn't have to worry about that, and that's the benefit.
Yeah, there's definitely VFX artists like to be in the shadows, right? We like to be invisible, because that's how we did our job. But it sometimes becomes, the person becomes invisible too. Especially, it's now become more and more obvious. We have to market ourselves. We have to, go out on social media, and you're seeing kind of a rise of a celebrity VFX artists almost in these little pockets, of YouTube, and because they have to showcase their stuff. But it's definitely a skill they have to learn. I definitely haven't mastered it. Dan, have you cracked the code? I don't know.
No way.
No way.
Not at all.
It's so
you
nice.
Guys
You
are pretty charismatic.
We fake it, right?
Hey, see, that's half of marketing right there.
That's very sweet.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, and it's, you started Action VFX in Tennessee, which is a crazy idea. You're about as far away from Hollywood as I am from Texas, or Dan, you're in Portland, right?
Portland,
so
Oregon.
we're not in the hub of VFX. what gave you the courage to say, you know what, I'm gonna bet on VFX. I'm gonna Action VFX. That's what I'm gonna. That's the company I'm gonna build.
Yeah, it's like some of it is courage. I would say most of it is naivete, right? And sometimes you just don't know enough to know how crazy what you're trying to do is.
Yeah.
And and because of that, you actually get started. And then before you know it, it's too late to quit now.
Yeah.
You're in too deep. Oh no.
That
No,
laugh,
it's
Rodolphe, that laugh has a lot of wisdom in it. I can feel that pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so it's like my journey with selling VFX assets started in 2011. So I was like a freshman in college at the time and started a YouTube channel. So I don't know if you guys remember the VFX software. It's called Hit Film. It had come out and it was brand new and it was kind of like more geared towards beginners, but it had some really good features and stuff. And I think like the main idea I had honestly was, hey, if I'm the first person doing tutorials for this software, I could be like the Andrew Kramer of hit film. And that's
It's not a bad
and,
idea.
and that was true because Andrew Kramer, like what he's done with After Effects was just amazing, right? And I was like, hey,
Yeah.
let me do that. So I started a YouTube channel making some tutorials for hit film, started growing an audience, and always have been pretty entrepreneurial. And believe it or not, I've always loved the idea of VFX assets ever since I learned about them. Like, I think the first time I attempted to make an effects pack, I think I was a junior in high school, and I was trying to make a blood pack. Didn't work because I was a junior in high school and didn't know what I was doing.
What'd you make the blood out
But
of?
Ketchup packet?
no, it was like corn syrup
Awesome
and
taro.
food coloring.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then bought some balloons. Thought I was gonna fill the balloon with blood, and
Yeah.
it didn't work. It didn't work. But all that to say is, I've always just loved that idea of making assets ever since I learned about them. So once I started growing a little audience on that YouTube channel, I felt, hey, let me go ahead and give it a try, and ended up doing one pack. Was selling it for $15, which as a college student was like, man, this is cool. I am
Yeah, man.
loaded. So kept on doing that. And then it wasn't until after college, so in 2014, that I felt, okay, let me just go all in on that because yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved making stuff and having people use it. And at the time beforehand, I was freelancing mostly, like doing music videos and stuff like that. And I mean, film to me has always been movies. That's what got me into it. So the music video stuff was always for money. So it was like, okay, well, I can just not worry about that and just do for money. I'll sell assets. And then when I touch a camera, it'll be because I want to tell a great story and entertain people and whatnot. So that's kind of what happened there. So that was still pre-action VFX. And then in 2015, okay, here's what happened. In 2014, I remember I went to NAB, which is a convention in Vegas, and got to meet a lot of different people in the industry, got to see Adobe in all their glory and stuff.
You
And
met Mr. Adobe. I knew it. I could tell.
I met Mr. Vice Adobe. No,
Oh, okay.
but I remember after this trip, it really put a lot of things in perspective to show that, hey, the stuff that I'm doing right now, it's mostly beginners and very small scale projects using this stuff, and it's like we can actually take this to the next level and go after the Hollywood market, so to speak, and make stuff that can be used at the highest level of production. So that's when
Yeah.
the idea for Action VFX started. And
Well, I can
yeah,
confirm your stuff has been used at the highest levels of production.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
yes,
You did it.
it's like just yesterday. So Godzilla -1, which won the best VFX Oscar this
Yeah.
year. So they used a lot of our stuff, and the team at Shirogumi, they were pretty kind to work with us on a case study and provide some
Yeah, I loved the
like
breakdown you posted. It was
breakdowns
great. Yeah.
and stuff, and it's super cool. Like it's super cool that that was kind of the vision at the beginning of the type of assets we could make and what they could be used for. And it was great that actually is happening. And
Yeah.
again, while I was laughing when I said it, there is truly something positive about being too naive to know the depths of the thing that you're actually going to pursue. Because yes, it ended up being a lot harder than you thought it would be, a lot more expensive than you thought it would be. But at the same time, it's very rewarding that it actually happened. And it kind of goes to show that most things people don't do and most things they quit at, it's not even because it's impossible. You just kind of lose faith that you can make it happen. So there's a special beauty at looking at the world through a child's eye, I would say. So
Chows.
I've heard you and Luke talk about how your philosophy of leadership and business growth like changes every 3 to 6 months, where you're in over your head and then you finally catch up, and by the time you catch up you're like, well, our old method of thinking about this doesn't work anymore. And so just to stay on this point for just a second, like Action VFX is in a really interesting niche market, and it's an awesome entrepreneurial leap, and it's I hope that it's worked out for you as well as it looks like it does, like it has. So I'm curious, like, is there a lesson you've learned that you wish you would have learned 6 months ago, and a lesson that you have learned now that you wish you could tell yourself back in 2011?
Yeah, man. There's a lot there. What is one thing I would say 6 months ago? Or maybe not 6 months ago, I would say 12 months ago, I would have told myself that, instead of launching a new subscription that now I know you did away with because it was too much, how about you stop for a second and simplify the business a lot and just have one way of doing things, which is what we just did last month with just kind of unifying how we sell things. But it's so crazy how you can get so, like, new things are so exciting to an entrepreneur. It's like, oh, it's that shiny, oh my, oh, we could do this, oh, we could do this, and it
For
keeps
sure.
going. And if you're not careful, you'll just spread yourself so thin trying to chase all these ideas. And at Action VFX, we have a million ideas a day that we could chase, and it really takes a lot of discipline to have to stop yourself. So yeah, one thing my advice 12 months back would definitely be to focus more and to really enjoy the value of having a simple business. I think, when was that? In 2020, we decided we were going to launch this brand called Creator Vault, which would be kind of like Action VFX, but more focused on like the motion graphics and like the editor market and stuff. And we launched, and the assets we made were cool, but then it was like, okay, now we have two companies to run, and our main focus is Action VFX, and then we'll have the resources to really dedicate to this new thing. And now I wouldn't have started that at all. Like, I wouldn't have even considered it. I would simply, hey, we're all VFX. We do the 2D assets. I would still keep doing it for a few more years before just spreading myself too thin. So these are kind of like what I mean by focus. And then the advice I would give myself in 2011 was build a team as soon as possible.
Oh, yeah.
Because from 2011 to, like, Luke joined the team full time until 2016. So that was like, for that 5 years, it was mainly just a one-man show. And then sometimes I would hire freelancers and stuff like that. And I think when you're young, maybe there is like this it can feel cool when, yeah, I'm a solopreneur. It's all me. Yeah, I did all of that. Aren't I awesome? And then as I've grown, it's like, no, you're not awesome. It's just
Yeah.
you doing this. Like when you bring other people together on a vision, they can do so much more than you could do on your own. And one thing I used to tell myself was, man, if only I could copy myself, this business would really take off. And now I'm like, no, that's a very poor way of looking at it, because if I copied myself, then that person would have all of my same strengths and then all of my same weaknesses. And it is always mind blowing to me that, like, there are things that I absolutely hate, and that's what someone wants to do. And I'm like, how? How is that a thing? Like, you'll do that for me? It's like, okay, well, go ahead and do it. And like, that's a real thing. And then things that I'm absolutely terrible at, that someone will naturally be so good at it. I remember in the early days, Luke would be building all our PCs, right? And it's like, I don't know, the first thing about building a computer. And that's a very simple thing. Like, it gets so much more in depth. Like, Zach on our team right now, he works on the product team, and he's definitely a lot more technical than I am. I've always been more visual as far as art directing things, but like he really cares about the color spaces and the render passes and all the stuff, which is very much needed to help us maintain the standards that are required for the industry. And it's like, I get very little enjoyment out of that side of things, but he does, and he's great at it. So yeah, that would be my advice: is being alone is not that cool. As soon as you're able to, just start building a team and trust that people can really come together and contribute to the vision.
What is that? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, build a team. And VFX is a very collaborative. I mean, it's a very collaborative industry. Filmmaking in general just is. Yeah, so it's neat that you guys mirror that at Action VFX, just kind of intuitively,
Yeah, it's been fun, and yeah, of course, managing people does bring its own set of challenges as well. But again, that is life. We never just get anything good, and then there's no no downsides, right? But hey, it is more than worth it, though.
That's a really curious thing. So I came up in New York in the commercial industry, and there's dozens of little shops. There's also the Mill, there's also Frame Store, there's also MPC. Like, at the time, I think MPC was there. Anyway, there would be these little shops that pop up that are like started by 3 great artists who are doing tremendous work, but they don't know how to manage a company. And so that company 2 years from then won't be there anymore. Shifting gears and like changing hats from like the artist to the business person to the owner to the mentor to the community liaison. Like, what kind of tools did you use to either hand off certain responsibilities or develop those skills that let you take on those other roles that you hadn't had before?
Let me think for a bit. Like, trying to see if there's specific tools.
Normally on these Zoom calls, you have the bookcase behind you full of all of the leather-bound books that have all these answers in them. Sure. It's not.
You'll also have people who are interviewing you that just want yes or no questions. I'm sorry, this is just how I live.
Well, I know VFX has like mentors. I've had a ton of really great mentors that have kind of taught me as I've grown as an artist. Did you have like that mentor that like Dan was saying kind of helped you figure these things out? Is this?
Yeah. So I think I was taking tools too literally there, and then I'm like, okay, I don't need to think of it.
He breaks out the hammer. That's my magic hammer.
Specifically, yeah. I mean, I'm a big reader, So reading a ton of business books have been great. Like one of my favorites at the beginning was called The Personal MBA. I think by an author. His name is Josh Kaufman, I think. But anyways, so I really love that book because it kind of breaks down a lot of business concepts into bite-sized pieces and kind of really help get your brain more into that mode, which was super helpful. And it's like one advantage I do think I had was I do love business as much as I love like film and VFX and all of that stuff. Like I was selling gum in middle school to the other students, for example. So it's like naturally the idea of having a product and selling it has always been energizing to me. So
Sure.
so in that sense I felt I had an advantage because I didn't view it as either or. I didn't view myself as an artist who has to do business. It was more like, yeah, business is fun as well. But yeah, definitely a lot of books. Definitely, I mean, there's really great influencers online that you can follow that will have bite-sized pieces of information. I'm a big Gary Vee fan, for example. There's a like he's on YouTube. He does some great stuff. Like
Oh
in
yeah.
the very early days, he did. I found a lot of his stuff very useful. So things like that was always good. One of my mentors in Tennessee, his name is Tommy Greer. He ran a business for years. Definitely a lot more experience in all of that stuff. And I ended up meeting him at church one day, and somehow we started meeting. And I don't even remember how that happened, but we started meeting, and then he's helped a ton as far as advice goes. And he's actually our CFO now at ActionVFX,
Oh wow.
Works out.
which is super cool. But yeah, it's like with him. I remember with our relationship, it was just coming from just being a kid, doing stuff in your room and to actually building a legit business and knowing, the different tax ramifications of stuff and how you actually set up a team and doing payroll properly and all of that stuff.
Yep.
Like he was a massive help in that because yeah, there are things I just wasn't even thinking about and you just didn't even know existed. So so yeah, my mentors definitely play a huge role. And mentors are either in person or in books. A lot of people don't think about it that way, but when you read
It's true. Yeah.
someone's book,
Yeah,
it
that's a
is
good
really
point.
like they are your mentors. And one thing too, I heard this quote once. I'm gonna butcher it, but it says something like, we fail not because of lack of information. We fail because we don't do the things that we know.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, I feel like I've read enough business books that if I did everything I actually learned, maybe I wouldn't need to read another one, right? So there's always that
Well, you've
that
you've
balance.
internalized those lessons, right? Now it's become more of like a gut feel. It's your inner voice now kind of guiding you just as much as these outside mentors as you've internalized it, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like I've internalized maybe 15% of them.
He's still
I wish
buffering,
I had,
still loading.
Yeah. You just got to read
but
85% more books and you'll get it
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
Well, it's such a it's
see,
such good advice because like I know a lot of artists have found themselves now in freelance roles, and Dan was mentioning all the different hats you have to wear. I think we've all had to get to that point in our career where then like, oh, freelance is now a thing, and praying that like, oh, I pray I took out enough taxes. I really hope I didn't screw up our taxes.
hmm
Like those things you kind of learn along the way can be really daunting and can prevent some talented artists from going out there and offering their services and really capitalizing on their skills. So it's
Mhm.
it's really encouraging to hear that that's a very normal thing that everybody is kind of
Mhm.
terrified as they're getting into it, and if they're lucky enough to find those mentors they kind of guide them along, they can
hmm
they can find success.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. because everything is very hard the first time, but then when someone has walked these roads before, they can really simplify things for you and really make you see, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Like that
Yeah.
is very possible. And you'd be surprised how much you can get away with not knowing. And again, that's kind of goes back to the whole naive thing I was mentioning is you really don't have to have it all figured out, from the get-go.
Yeah.
Like you can, like Action VFX then get started, and then on year one, people were getting health benefits and stuff, right? It's like it took a while to grow into that and to really figure out, how to have that system. It took a while to actually have an HR person and that, actually knows this stuff versus just me and Luke failing at hiring the right people and stuff. And yeah, so I would say definitely get your taxes right. That's the one thing I would say. Definitely step one. Definitely do that. Like they will
figure that out.
They will eat you alive if you if you screw that one up. But most of everything else, you can kind of build the plane as it's falling, as they say, and just learn and do better and treat people nicely. Because you will make mistakes, but as long as you're not out here trying to screw people over, like most things are forgivable. So
yeah. No, you guys have always come across very genuine whenever you reach out to the community. I would love to see more artist challenges come back. If I could make a community request, we used to have on VFXTalk way back in the day when it was just a BBS forum, the VFX challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that was so cool to have for the community. And that was before we had access to like all these incredible assets that like Action VFX, offers and other companies as well. I would love to see that because it's such a good thing for the community just to kind of start creating, not overthinking it, right? Jumping into a comp and just start making something. It's very therapeutic. It's very creative. And I think I think you'd get a lot of response. I really hope you guys do something.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah. And there's
yeah, we do want to get
a lot of like 3D challenges like
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, and you could feature artists. You can have the celebrity VFX artists.
There's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, his 3D challenges with his animation loops are incredible. My daughter and my daughter's 8, and she and I watch them all day. Yeah.
Oh, nice. See, look at VFX bringing families together.
That's it, man. That's it. Well, do you have, one thing that I was always struck with all your free assets is how cinematic they are. You can tell there's filmmakers behind them because there's kind of a story that's that's in there. You guys ever going to put together like a little Action VFX little short film, like from start to finish? You can get your directing chops back up.
See you on IMDb.
No, yeah, that's hilarious that you mentioned that. So actually I've had this goal since my early 20s to make a feature film by the time I'm 35. So I'm going to be 32 later this month. So it's kind of like, okay, clock is ticking to make
you're
that
right
happen.
On track, man.
Yeah, man.
So I used to do short films all the time. So the last one I did was in 2015 because in 2016 this company launched, and then I couldn't do short films anymore while running it.
Every 10 years, 2015, 2025, you got next year.
Yeah. But so the plan actually, my plan right now for next year is to do a few Action VFX short films where we get to showcase our assets and stuff, but then also use those same footage in the practice footage library and also get my directing skills back up there. So it's kind of like a killing 3 birds with 1 stone type of project. So
exciting.
So yeah, definitely look forward to that. If any of you guys want to contribute any VFX to it,
I can tell you there's a ton of VFXTalk compositors out there that would love to jump in on that. So yeah, come on over.
Yeah. Community projects
Nice,
are
nice.
a lot of fun. Yeah,
Yeah, it's fantastic.
that's
Well,
incredible.
yeah, well, it's been really. We're getting to the end. You know, I don't want to. I know you're busy as the head of Action VFX, so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. But just thank you so much for everything you're doing for the community, because it really is this wonderful service that you're providing. You know, just the free assets. They're really really good. They're super fun to play with and pull keys off of, and I know everybody's learning a lot, and that was like the number one thing that I was really worried about when the strikes happened and the industry started kind of imploding, for still kind of imploding, but
Mm-hmm.
it's getting a little bit better. But it was I was on a Reddit board, and we had students that were going on the VFX subreddit, which don't ever go on there because it's really depressing. And they were just like, should I even start? Should I even start learning all this stuff? Because it was just so, you know, it felt insurmountable. It felt like there was going to be no jobs. You know, how am I even going to do it? And by you guys providing these really nice free assets, it's really this cool way of just saying like no, just like you started Action VFX, just start. You know, you can, here you go. Here's some great stuff to play with. They can
Just
get their
start, just
chops
play.
up. Just
Yeah.
playing. That's all it is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
So
I'm super grateful to you and the whole Action VFX crew. I've talked with a couple of your other employees on LinkedIn who like shoot some of your assets, and everybody's been so great and responsive. And every time you come out with new assets, I'm just like, oh, like now I have to find out how I'm going to use these. Like, so it's a fun little challenge. It's a fun little game to play.
Yeah.
So thank you for
No,
all your hard
thank
work.
you so much, guys. Like, no, seriously, that means a lot, and we do put a lot of work into everything we do, and it's always great to see it helping people and being appreciated, and yeah, thanks for having me on here. Yeah, that was a great talk.
yeah,
Like, you
good.
guys truly are great hosts. Like
Oh, thank you. Coming from you, you've done so many interviews. I've watched at least half of them. Like, so thank you for saying as much.
Yeah, you've been in my ear while I've been doing my morning runs for the past like about a week, just kind of like, all right,
that's hilarious.
getting going, man.
That's hilarious. That's a truly funny thought to
Oh yeah,
to think about.
Well,
don't think about it too hard.
Yeah, well, it's how the industry is nowadays too, right? Because it's a global industry, and but it's also still very tightly niched. You know, it's everywhere, but everybody kind of knows each other. So it's yeah, you're always in everybody's ears somewhere in the world.
Do you think I sound like an African Morgan Freeman? That's what a YouTube comment said once.
Oh, never read the YouTube comments. What are you doing? No.
Rodolphe, I didn't bring it up in the call per se in the main chat, but I do hope that you and Luke and the team have the kind of emotional support that people need sometimes when they are opening themselves up to comments on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, like it's, especially as like a non-white business owner, it can be a very vitriolic and dark place sometimes.
Yeah, like that's one thing we're always, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. You kind of have to set up those good habits, and like it has to be sustainable at the end of the day. And that's one thing that I try to keep in mind is, you have to have a good support system. You have to, because you're going to have bad days. You're going to have bad seasons. I mean, heck, I would say this year was one of the hardest years of Action VFX, just with the industry and then like trying to navigate different transitions and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like it's been good, but not a good point. And thank you for saying that. It's people online can be needlessly mean sometimes. It's it's like the other day we got someone wrote like an open letter to Action VFX on Reddit because we moved to the subscription model, and it's just like, you could have just written us, right? Like I would pay just as much attention if you did than this open letter where it's just like, let us hate. And it's just like, come on.
And then Luke responded on there. Like, you know, and like, it's wild because like when you guys do that, you don't get to keep your anonymity and everyone else does.
Yeah. Now it's like, Luke responding personally to,
or you responding like to something else. And it's, you know, everyone else is just like, oh, well, like Puffy Cloud 84 is like, you guys suck, I hate you. And yet they'll still use your elements, but like they don't have any accountability for what they say. You know, you guys are up there and we know your faces, you know, it's, that's a hard thing to do. And
darn Puffy Cloud.
Give yourself a break if you're ever taking it too hard.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really important. We find on the VFXTalk forums, like it's nice because we have like kind of I don't know how it happened. Maybe it's just you know that core group that kind of put it all together. You kind of set the tone, kind of like how you're setting the tone for you know how your company runs. But everybody on VFXTalk is like so supportive. Like they'll give you a good honest critique of your work. Like they don't like we had one thing comes to mind of there was an older VFX supervisor, older generation on LinkedIn, and a member came on and was just like, you never like this supervisor just tore into the students work, just really like went at it. And the whole community kind of like gathered around and they was like, no, that is not okay. Like the student was on the VFXTalk, you know, forum, and just this really supportive group came around and be like, all right, here's how we can actually constructively give you that critique. We don't have to spew hate or make you feel dumb, you know, because you're trying something and it didn't work. It's okay. That's part of the process. You know, it's I think you'll find if you get off of the Reddit boards, the real kind of, you know, the on the boots, the ground, the VFX artists are some of the nicest, most supportive, just group of really talented individuals. And like I said earlier on, like you really couldn't have picked a better community to hitch your horse to than the VFX community, because we're super loyal. we're very creative, we're scrappy, and everybody's really open to sharing, which is I'm that's why I love your free assets so much. You know, it's continuing that asset, you know, that tradition of sharing to build the industry up. You know, it's really cool. It's really commendable, man.
Yeah, thanks again.
I appreciate it, you guys. Man, I feel so great. I should have done this. I should have done this on Monday so that I'm just ready to kill the week.
If you ever want to jump on a call, man, you need a little hype session.
Absolutely.
It's like it's Friday now. Like I don't have anything to do to use all of this goodwill for.
See, I'm taking my kid to a haunted house later today, so I'm gonna burn off all of this energy screaming. Maybe crying a little bit. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, what's the kid gonna do?
Oh, he's all tough. He saw The Ring last week, and
oh my God,
now he thinks he's all tough. But I was like, I saw that look, man. You were terrified.
Oh, too good. Well, Rodolphe, thank you again. Doug, thank you.
Yeah,
this is awesome. I want to do this some more.
Yeah. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah, for sure. And down to come back next year. I'm sure we'll have even cooler stuff to talk about at the rate we're going. So,
that's exciting.
Up, awesome. Man. Only direction.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and thank the whole team. Really, I know it's a team effort, and they're all great. Yeah.
No, for sure, we'll do. Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right. I'll see you guys. Enjoy your weekend. Okay.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.